Hello, my friend. I hope you are doing well, and repeat after me, I hope you're ready for a long, verbose, in-depth discussion about another one of my collections. This time we are going to be looking at a collection that I have talked about on the channel before, however, it was a couple of years ago, and I'm not exactly proud of that video, and there has been a couple of CDs that have been added to the collection since then, and whoops, I just spoiled it. Yes, we're going to be talking about my CD collection, but if you looked at the thumbnail and read the title, which I would hope that you do before you click on a YouTube video, then you already knew that. So just a couple of things that I should mention before we get into this is that I mainly collected CDs between my late childhood up through my teenage years, but I haven't exactly collected CDs since then, which means it's been, well, oh my gosh, I just looked at what year it is and realized that, yeah, it's been over half a decade, almost a decade, since I was really collecting CDs. And back when I was collecting CDs, I mainly collected, really, rock, metal, punk rock. Well, I think I might have a few punk rock CDs in here, but honestly, I don't even know how many of those that I have. As well as some rap and stuff, but it was one of those things where whenever I was collecting, I was usually trying to collect every CD for a specific artist, and then, I'd go into the next one and kind of do it like that. So there's a lot of things missing from my CD collection. Like nowadays, I'm not even kidding you when I say that if I were to collect CDs again, which I do plan to get back into, there would be many more genres. There'd be some country, there'd be some pop, there'd be some dubstep and electronic. Like straight up, my first CD that I'd probably buy would be like Taylor Swift Red, just because it's at that point where I genuinely have nostalgia for that CD. So with that being said, I do plan to buy some more CDs here soon. So who knows, maybe like a year from now we could revisit this, just because I've been getting into collecting a whole lot of things lately. I mean, obviously video games will always be my number one priority with my budgets, with my collecting, with everything like that, but there's obviously also other things that I enjoy, like anime and manga and, collecting Blu-rays and DVDs and CDs as well, and trading cards and all that. But anyway, enough jib-jab, enough prerequisites. Let's go ahead and get right into this. I'm gonna try to get through all of this in a reasonable time frame while still also talking about these CDs rather, at least somewhat in depth, or at least giving my history with them, but I'll try not to drag this out for as long as some of my other collection videos, but we'll just see how that goes. First things first, I feel really bad about this one, AC/DC Back in Black. Now, this is a great CD, of course, there's some amazing songs on here. However, this is actually a song that I borrowed from my grandfather, and I never got the chance to give it back yet, so I actually might be seeing him later today, just because it is my sister's birthday at the time of me recording this, and I do believe that they're coming over to see my sister, so I'll have to give this back to him, because I borrowed this like 3 or 4 years ago, and I forgot to do so whoops. Next up, we have Avenged Sevenfold, their self-titled record from 2008, and oh my gosh, there are so many amazing songs on this album. This has always been one of my favorites. I mean, literally, like, looking up and down the track list, there's not a single song that I don't like on here. Like, Critical Acclaim is a great opener. It's obviously a little more political, but it's still a great song. Almost Easy, super catchy. It can kind of get you in your feels a bit, but it's like a great song. Scream has some great energy. Afterlife, obviously one of their biggest singles ever and one of their biggest songs ever. Such an amazing song. Gunslinger, Unbound, Brompton Cocktail, Lost, A Little Piece of Heaven, Dear God, like literally, like the entire track list is just hit after hit on this one. Easily one of the best Avenged Sevenfold records, and just, I guess this would be, what, like more like metalcore, or just kind of like baseline metal. And then following that up immediately, oh, and one thing that you'll realize is that I only alphabetize my CDs by the artist, so I don't actually alphabetize them by the CD names themselves as well. Like, like for example, Slipknot, like I have it in order of Slipknot, and then Iowa, and then Volume 3, and then All Hope Is Gone, and then so on and so forth. So I alphabetize it by artist name, but then from there I just kind of put it in release order, because that's how I recognize or remember the order of the albums. But anyway, next up we have Nightmare, which unfortunately, as you can see, my case is a little cracked here, but once again, this is probably, if I had to choose a favorite A7X record, gun to my head, I would say Nightmare. This record is just, I mean, obviously, if you know the history behind this album, they had lost their drummer between the recording of this album and this one, so there was just a lot of emotion going into this one, and that's one thing that I love with music, is just sheer, just unfiltered emotion, to where when you're listening to it, you can just really feel it, which is like one of the draws of like what got me into Slipknot in the first place back in the day, because if you've heard like their self-titled album or Iowa, you can just like feel the emotion burning through that album. And same thing here with Nightmare. Like, going up and down the track list, it's one of those things where sure, you have the usual rockers like Nightmare and Welcome to the Family or Natural Born Killer or whatever, but then you also have some of the more heartfelt ones like So Far Away, or really just like the last couple songs on the album, like Victim, Tonight the World Dies, Fiction, and Save Me. Like those last 4 songs are all just, really packed with some heavy emotion in there. And yeah, even looking at like the cover art there for this album, it's it's so good. Unfortunately, that is the only 2 A7X albums that I have. I do want to buy the rest of them at some point because, you know, their first 2 albums I feel like are slept on way too much nowadays, and then obviously by the time that you get to the 3rd one, that's when you start to see some of their bigger singles coming into the fold there. But yeah, Avenged Sevenfold is just such a fantastic band, and obviously they've also done a lot of work with Call of Duty, and, you know, I mean, you guys know me, Call of Duty is one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time, obviously, so I want to get some of those on CD at some point because they do have some compilations that include the work that they've done on the Call of Duty games, just like on a CD, so I'm going to get that at some point. And if you're confused as to why I was calling them A7X, just for those that don't know or aren't A7X or Avenged Sevenfold fans, A7X is just like another name for them or like a shortened version of it. But anyway, then next we have Avril Lavigne Let Go. Unfortunately, my only Avril Lavigne CD, but again, gun to my head if I had to choose my favorite Avril Lavigne album. This is probably the one that I'm pointing to, just so many, you know, nostalgic classics on here. Losing Grip is a great opener to the album. Complicated, I feel like everybody has heard. Skater Boy's really catchy. Then you got some that kind of like get, I guess, like more in the feels, like I'm With You, which is like another one that I always listen to, and it's just like, it's just nice to vibe to, kind of get in the feels too. But yeah, this is a great CD right here. They actually just did a re-release of this recently for the 20th anniversary, and it included some like bonus tracks and a bunch of the other deluxe songs that were on like the original deluxe version of the album. So yeah, that's actually a pickup that I want to get at some point because there's like a different cover art and all that. So I think there's a physical version of that. If there is, I'll have to pick it up. But anyway, next up we have one of the most exciting ones and one of the most nostalgic ones. If you see me brushing off dust, it's because I just haven't listened to my CDs in a while, because like I do have a CD player, but it's not as like beefy as my, oh my gosh, I'm inhaling the dust and it's like making me want to sneeze and cough. Anyway, the CD player I have now isn't as beefy as my original one was. So usually when I listen to music, I just listen to it on the same surround sound system that I play my video games on. But anyway, this one is Head by Brian Head Welsh. And if you don't know the story behind this record, basically, Brian Head Welsh is the guitarist for Korn. He left Korn for a little while just to go on a spiritual journey, you know, with like Christianity and find God and find himself and get clean and stuff like that, which is, you know, absolutely amazing. And yeah, this is like the only CD that he really did by himself under the Brian Head Welsh name. He does still have his other band called Love and Death, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, this is the only one that he really did under the Head name. And this is a really emotional album, but it's really good. Obviously, you know, as much as I want to recommend it to metal fans, and I do recommend it to metal fans, it is one of those things where it is heavily religious. And, you know, while I am a Christian, so I do really enjoy and resonate with this album. For some people that aren't into the religious themes, it may not resonate with you in that way, but I would still recommend listening to it just because there is still a lot of like banging heavy hitters, and you know, Head is the one actually singing and, you know, in a lot of cases screaming on this album. So if you're looking for songs that aren't necessarily religious, but I mean, you know, there's still religious themes to them, but they're still just heavy hitters, I'd recommend Flush and Money for sure. Both of those are really just heavy hitter, traditional, more like metal-esque songs without leaning too much on the religious side of things, but still, regardless, even if you're not religious, I'd recommend giving the album a listen. Next up, we got Devil's Night by D12. If you don't know what D12 is, it's not actually 12 guys, it's just 6 guys, but they all have split personalities, being headed by, well, for a while, it was kind of like it was being headed by Eminem, but then by the time they got to the second record, it seemed like they were trying to have Eminem, you know, kind of like take a step back, so he wasn't the one leading, you know, like leading the group, and it was more or less just like, you know, a joint effort between all of them. At least that's kind of the vibes I always felt, because Eminem was very heavily on all of these songs between the hooks and the verses and stuff like that. But this album, holy crap, dude, it is very of its era. So it's one of those things where, like, I personally still enjoy the album, but if you would give this to somebody in late Gen Z, because I always feel like when it comes to Gen Z, there's 2 parts of Gen Z, unlike any other generation that I've ever seen, to where early Gen Z is still more of like, you know, like the, I don't know, the old school style of life, whereas later Gen Z is just, I mean, they're more in line with like Gen A. I'm not dissing Gen A because I know there's a lot of very young viewers that watch me. I'm just saying that there's a lot of brain rot that is stemmed from that generation, and I'm just not a fan of it, if I'm gonna be honest. But anyway, if you would hand the CD to one of those younger folks, or just one of those more sensitive snowflake folks on the internet nowadays, I don't know if they'd even know how to handle themselves. Like, seriously, this album, just going back and listening to it now, it's one of those things where listening to it as a teenager, I never even really winced at it, just because, you know, I was already listening to stuff like the Slim Shady LP and Marshall Mathers LP. But going back to it and listening to it nowadays, just knowing the scene of how things are on the internet, oh my gosh, it pushes so many buttons in all the right ways, and it's just absolutely fantastic. But anyway, going on to the next CD here, we have The Sickness by Disturbed. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't gotten to listen to this record as much as I would like to. I mean, I've listened to it front and back, you know, a couple of times. Stupefy and like Down with the Sickness are some of the ones that stick out in my mind, obviously. I mean, Down with the Sickness, everybody knows that song, that ooh, ah, ah, whatever. But yeah, Disturbed, you know, they're a great band, but it's definitely one of those bands where I only have one of their CDs, and if I'm gonna be honest, it's not like I've listened to every single song in their discography. I've listened to most of their early albums, but for example, like, I don't even know if they released an album in recent years. The last one that I heard would have been back in, like, I think they released an album in, what, 2018, 2017, 2019, somewhere in that year range, but that's honestly the last one that I heard, so definitely gotta catch up with my Disturbed stuff, because they're a great band, man. They got songs like Liberate and Prayer, for example, which are some of my other favorite ones. I know those songs are huge, but still, they're a rockin' band. They're really good. Next up, we're just gonna go ahead and blast through the Eminem stuff. So we got Slim Shady LP, Marshall Mathers LP, The Eminem Show, Encore, and then Relapse. And then Recovery, but after Recovery, we kind of have to take a bit of a detour real quick to talk about another part of my collection. We're not going to talk about all of it at the moment, but we'll talk about the one very specific part that is relevant to this part of the conversation. That is the Marshall Mathers LP 2. Now, see, I was talking about this in my Blu-ray/DVD collection, where I like to have bog standard cases, so I prefer to have my CDs in these kind of cases. Therefore, I do plan to repurchase this album in, the standard version of it in the CD case at some point, just so it can all be unified. That being said, this is the deluxe version of the Marshall Mathers LP2, just because there were some songs that I really like on that deluxe version that I really wanted to have. Namely, Beautiful Pain. That is just straight up one of my favorite Eminem songs. There's just something about it where I really like his flow on it. I like the beat. The hook is really, really good. It's just, just really clean sounding. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and take a look at it together. So it's the deluxe edition. It opens up, you see the classic little house on the front. Then you open it up, you got the first CD and a picture of the man himself right there. Then you open it up again, and the second CD is there with all the other good stuff. And yeah, this is easily like one of my not only most listened to, but also just most nostalgic Eminem albums. Obviously, you got songs like Berserk and Rap God, which were really blowing up around the time that I was like, what would I have been? Yeah, about a teenager by then. Marshall Mathers LP2, it's such an amazing Eminem album. And then after that, we have Revival right here, which I always felt like was hated on way too much. I always loved Revival. Like, again, another one where I look up and down the track list, and I can point to so many songs that I listened to so many times and genuinely loved. You got like Walk on Water, River, Bad Husband was another one that I always really liked too. Tragic Endings, I always absolutely loved. I just, anytime that Skylar Grey's on an Eminem song, I just love it. Her voice is just so good. Framed is one that kind of calls back to those classic days of Slim Shady. Sure, the hook is a little crazy with the whole I was framed. It sounds so ridiculous, but it's that crazy, wacky, Slim Shady stuff, man. And then, the rest of the songs in the album sound great, too. Like, Need Me, it's more of a Pink song featuring Eminem, if I'm gonna be honest, because Eminem's only on there for a short amount of time, whereas Pink takes up most of the song. In Your Head is another one I like, and then Castle and Other Rose were, like, really great ways to close out the album. So I always feel like Revival got too much hate. And, another thing I was just thinking of as I was looking at these albums is I bought a lot of these CDs at FYE, and I don't even know if FYE is a store anymore. But, man, I have a lot of memories going there between going with my mom or going with my cousin that I used to hang out with all the time back when I lived up north in Pennsylvania. I really miss those days, man. Me and my cousin used to hang out all the time. It was just one of those things where back in, like, middle school and high school and stuff, I was really going through some rough times, to say the least. And, going video game shopping and going CD shopping with my cousin and stuff like that was just one of those things where it's such an awesome escape from reality, just because, I don't know, it's just kind of stuff I'm into, right? I love collecting stuff that I'm passionate about, and when it comes to, like, media and art forms and such, whether that be, like, straight up art or, like, other things like comic books or CDs or music or movies or games or stuff like that, it's just, like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm into, just, like, the kind of art that involves, like, media like that in general. So, it's just so many fond memories, just kind of, that was like my escape going FYE back in the day. But anyway, then we have Eminem Kamikaze. Unfortunately, that is the last Eminem CD that I have. I do want to get the ones that he's released since then, since he's released 3, those being the Music to Be Murdered By, the first one, and then Side B, as well as this most recent one, The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace. That album was absolutely fantastic. I remember when he first dropped Houdini and I listened to it, I was like, man, that's like Slim Shady right there. And then when you turn on the album, that first track where it's literally like no hooks, no nothing, just an intro of like classic Slim Shady just riffing it, like, oh my gosh, dude, yeah, that album is killer. And then next up we got Five Finger Death Punch, Got Your Six. Unfortunately, this is my only Five Finger Death Punch album, which is really unfortunate because I love Five Finger Death Punch. Like, if you know me, I'm really into this band. It's one that I've always wanted to see live, but unfortunately I just never got the chance to. Funny story about this CD in particular, my mom's friend back in the day bought this for me, and I had the biggest crush on her, dude. It's one of those things. My mom worked at a, what was it? I believe it was like a babysitting company or babysitting like building of some kind or whatever, or like a daycare. That's what it's called, daycare, sorry. And of course, I was just like a, teenager at the time. So every time I saw that one friend of my mom's in particular, I was just like, oh, just thinking in my head, like, man, you're so pretty. So needless to say, I always cherish this CD quite dearly. Not only because she bought it for me, but I mean, furthermore, dude, this album just slays. Like, through and through, from front to back, there's not a single song on this that doesn't hit. Like, even from the beginning song, Got Your Six, it starts out with a bit of a softer riff, but then it just gets straight into the guitars, the hard riffing and the drums. Don't look back, cause I got your six. Like, dude, it is so heavy. I love it. But anyway, going into the next CD here, we got Hinder, Extreme Behavior. Another one I've listened to front to back a couple of times. It's a great breakup CD. But, yeah, if I had to pick, like, my 3 favorite songs off this album, I'd probably say Better Than Me, Lips of an Angel, and Get Stoned. I know those are pretty safe, pretty basic picks if you know this band and if you know their biggest singles, but, like, I mean, those songs hit, but it's another situation where the whole album is great. It's just if I had to pick my favorites, those are probably the ones that I'm leaning to just because they're so catchy and I listen to them all the time. But anyway, alright, we're really getting into the deeper things here, the thicker things here with this band, so I'm just, another one we're gonna kind of blast through just because I have so many of their CDs, but we have Korn, their first album, Life is Peachy, Follow the Leader, Issues, and then The Serenity of Suffering. Oh, wow, I actually thought I had more Korn CDs than that. What in the world? Okay, well, I could have swore I had some of the other ones, like the one from 2005 with Twisted Transistor and Coming Undone, and I could have swore I had the one with, like, Here to Stay and the one with, like, Right Now and all that, but I guess I don't. Well, anyway, since I only have 5 of these, I definitely need to buy the rest of the Korn CDs. My goodness, yeah, I love Korn. Literally, like, as soon as I hear that an album is coming out by Korn, I'm there, like, day one, like, midnight. Like, I will just stay up just to listen to the album. I love Korn. That goes, like, even more so for Slipknot, just because Slipknot is, like, my favorite band, favorite music thing, literally ever. But, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there, man. Slipknot is, like, my life when it comes to music. I mean, I literally have the Slipknot flag in the back. But, anyway, Korn, yeah, obviously their first CD is great. Life is Peachy, their second one is, like, it's one of those things where they were definitely leaning into the weird side of things a bit more, but that doesn't bother me because when it comes to indie metal, I'm into that weird stuff, man. Like when Slipknot makes songs like Iowa or Scissors where they're like 10 plus minutes long and it's them just like huffing and breathing on the mic and doing that thing with their gritting their teeth, and then they start like leaning into it and like kind of getting whiny with it before like leading into like these uncontrolled screams and spasms, and like, Jonathan Davis doing his scatting thing where it's like and stuff like that. Like, dude, I am so into that weird stuff. It's so gritty. There's so much emotion in it. It's so good. So like, Good God was one that I always loved on this one, and then obviously the song Adidas. I can't tell you what Adidas stands for, but I mean, you can either figure it out or Google it. Follow the Leader. This one was always interesting because if you know anything about the CD, the first 12 tracks are actually silent, and then on track 13, then the album actually starts. Always an interesting decision there, but this one definitely leaned more into like the hip-hop, late 90s side of things, which, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Follow the Leader, one of their best albums. Like, I genuinely love it so much. Issues, if I had to pick my favorite song off this one, definitely Falling Away from Me. I've listened to that one so much. Just that initial riff, it's so heavy, because not only is it the riff itself, but it's just the other instruments that play was like, like, I don't know what it is, just that final, like, sound where it's, like, kind of, like, not necessarily higher pitch, but it thumps so hard. And then The Serenity of Suffering, so many great songs in this one. If I had to pick, like, my top 3, probably Insane, Rotting in Vain, and A Different World featuring Corey Taylor. Oh my gosh, for those that don't know, Corey Taylor is the lead singer of Slipknot and Stone Sour, and Jonathan Davis and Corey Taylor both together on a song. It's just one of those things where it's like a match made in heaven for me in terms of like songs that I've always wanted to hear. So when that song first dropped back in like 2015, 2016, something like that, that was just like a dream come true. And yeah, it was so good. Also, I just gotta say that if I'm making any weird faces right now, it's because I'm breathing in and tasting a lot of dust, and I probably shouldn't be even, like, risking swallowing right now. Like, I should probably just spit out my saliva anytime that it comes into my mouth, because, like, it's probably infested with so much dust that I'm gonna catch an infection after this, but it's okay. Anyway, next up, we only have 2 of these albums, which really makes me sad, because this is a band with a really sad history to it, so we're just gonna go ahead and get into the rest of that being Linkin Park Hybrid Theory and Linkin Park Meteor. If you don't know, Chester Bennington unfortunately took his life back in 2017, and he was the lead singer of the band. And yeah, I remember being very heartbroken when I first heard that news, as were millions of other Linkin Park fans around the world. It is just, Like, you know, it's such a sensitive topic that I really don't even know what to say, but as somebody else, you know, that has also, not to make this about me, because it's not about me, this is about Chester right now, but all I'm saying is that as somebody that has also struggled with those ideations and attempts and has even spent time in inpatient mental hospitals just due to attempting you know, a similar thing, it is just one of those things where that is never the answer. But just to kind of cover all of our grounds here, now that this sensitive topic has been brought up, I'm going to display the hotline on the screen. So if you are feeling that way, you know, please call that number. I'm trying to be careful with what I say, because even saying the word sometimes can be triggering for some people, so I'm trying to be careful with what I say here, but the number is on screen. If you're not feeling safe yourself, if you're having any, you know, depressing thoughts or any other sort of ideations, please pause the video and call that number. I know sometimes the topic even being brought up is enough to trigger some people. I've been there, trust me, so there's that. But anyway, obviously very sad history with the band right there. These two albums will forever just be masterpieces. I mean, through and through, like when you listen to these albums, Hybrid Theory, Meteora, there's not a single bad or questionable song on the track list. It's just bangers through and through. If I could point out some underrated ones, I'd say Pushing Me Away is one of my favorite underrated Linkin Park songs. At least I think it's kind of underrated. I just don't hear a lot of people talking about it. You hear everybody talk about One Step Closer, Crawling, this, that, or the other, but Pushing Me Away is one that I've always listened to. And then on this album here, From the Inside has always been one of my favorite ones over here. Again, I don't know if that one's necessarily underrated in the grand scheme of things, but I definitely hear it talked about less than, say, like Numb or Faint or one of the other ones on that album. Next up, we got Love and Death, Between Here and Lost. Now, if you remember, we were talking about the Head Welsh CD earlier, and this is the other band I was talking about, Love and Death. And yeah, this is the first album that they put out together. They did put out another one called Perfectly Preserved just a couple of years ago, which I still have to pick up at some point, which had tons of great songs on it as well. If I could point out some of my favorites on here, I'd probably say Paralyzed and Chemicals were probably like the two that I still listen to the most, but it's another album where you can listen to this whole thing through and through, and it's just consistently good and rocking the whole way through. Like The Abandoning, Whip It, Watching the Bottom Fall, Meltdown, My Disaster. Like, there's so many great songs on this record. My fingers are literally turning gray from the dust. I need to listen to my CDs more often. And Love and Death is one of those things where, while yes, it's still technically religious in spirit, just because obviously, you know, like Head Welsh is a Christian, as is, you know, some of the other band members, at least I believe so. It definitely doesn't lean, I mean, there is still some of those themes in the songs, but it's definitely not as, I guess, as outwardly religious as the Head Welsh solo album was. So, you know, if you're just looking for, you know, your rock and metal fix, but aren't necessarily looking for something religious, then, you know, you could listen to that album and wouldn't necessarily have to worry about that. But anyway, next up we got Ludacris, Back for the First Time, and this is just one of those things where I saw it at a thrift store for really cheap, so even though, you know, the case is kind of busted up a bit, it's one of those things I saw it for like, what, like $1 or $2, so I was like, hey, I'll go ahead and pick it up, add it to the collection, because I do enjoy Ludacris's music. Next up, we're getting into one where I actually can't show the cover arts for some of these, because there is outward, just straight nudity on these. So I'll just kind of have to show you no, I can't even show you the back, because that is a male genitalia. Okay, so this is Marilyn Manson, Antichrist Superstar. It is a phenomenal album. That's the one that includes, like, The Beautiful People, and if I could point out an underrated song on that one, that's something that I'm trying to do here towards the end. I was thinking about doing it before I started recording, but then I completely forgot about it. I kind of wanted to point out some of my favorite or like hidden gems or underrated songs on these records, but I completely forgot about doing that. But if I could point one out for that, I'd say Angel with the Scabbed Wings. It's a hard rockin' Marilyn Manson song, and I just barely ever hear people talking about it. Next up, we got Mechanical Animals. I can't show the cover art. I'm sorry, but this is another great record right here. Rock is dead of the dead. Shock. Yeah, dude, I love that song so much. It's track 4 on the album. I'll never forget that. Track 4, Rock is Dead. So good. And then Coma White, the last song on the album, that one, man, that one's got me in my feels a couple of times just because it hits so hard. A pill to make you numb. A pill to make you dumb. A pill to make you anybody else, or something like that. I forget how the melody goes exactly, but it hits so hard between his vocals, because his vocals have always just, they're so unique. There's something about him where it's like, it almost sounds like he's talking to you, but he's singing. And obviously they got a bit of like the electronic / industrial mix that I've always loved with other bands like 9 Inch Nails, for example. So yeah, you know, just just so good. And then his next album, which I think I can get, I don't know if I can actually show this cover art, never mind. This one is Hollywood, though. There is a couple of Manson, oh my god, dude, the dust is, it's really building up over here. Y'all know Charlie Brown, the kid with the blanket, I can't, Linus, right? That's his name, Linus. It's been a couple years since I got to watch Charlie Brown, unfortunately. But, you know, the one with the blanket where he's got that dust cloud around him, or the dirt cloud, that's kind of how I feel right now. It's so building up. Anyway, Hollywood. This is probably, is this my favorite Manson record? I think this is my favorite Manson record. If I had to choose, I would probably say Hollywood, but Marilyn Manson is one of those things where it's one of my favorite artists of all time, and I love all of his albums dearly, and I want to get the rest of his CDs, like Portrait of American Family, and then, you know, I have these 3 records after right here, but then obviously there was ones that he did after that, and in between that I just didn't get to pick up yet, those being the Golden Age of Grotesque, and then the one that he put out in 2007, Eat Me, Drink Me, and then the High End of Low, and then Born Villain, and then The Pale Emperor, and then the next one that I do have that I can show right here is Heaven Upside Down, and then he just put one out in 2020, and I don't think that he's put any out since then, so I'll have to get those other ones yet. Heaven Upside Down is a great record. I remember picking this one up at FYE actually shortly after it released, and yeah, man, this album is so sick. I remember like being so excited because one of the songs had leaked, and this was back in like 2016, 2017. One of the songs leaked before the album came out, that one being Say 10. You know, it's spelled S-A-Y and then 1-0, but obviously you know what it's supposed to say because Marilyn Manson. He, you know, I mean, if you've listened to his music, you know some of the stuff that he talks about. But I always thought that opening was so cool. Like, the way it was just, like, very atmospheric and echoey in the whispers. Like, the whisper, I always love the whispers because it kind of reminded me of, like, Beautiful People a bit. How he starts that out kind of whispering and then it just fully goes into the chorus where it's, like, all rocking and stuff like that. But with that one, it was a similar thing where it's, like, all whispering and then it gets to the hook. It's like, you say God and I say... Yeah, it just goes on with that. But then there's just so many great ones on this one. And the thing that I love about this record is it's constantly balancing between like hardcore riffing, rock, and borderline like industrial metal stuff. And then also just like softer stuff. Like you got some songs like We Know Where You Effing Live where they're just screaming on the hook like, we know where you fucking live. And it's just like just screaming it. But then you got songs that are more laid back like Kill For Me where it's just, we're just singing, you know, just like kill, kill, kill for me. And it's just like, you know, one of those things where it's just, there's so many, I wouldn't say different genres, but just so many different kinds of music within the same genre. And it's really hard to put Marilyn Manson in a genre because he's dabbled in so many different things. He's just Marilyn Manson at this point, but always been such a huge fan of him and his music and that whole band in general. But anyway, we're getting on to the, actually no, we are not there yet. We need to cover this one first because this would technically be next. This is only my only Metallica CD, and I'm so sad to say that because obviously I literally love every Metallica album. I'm like a huge Metallica fanboy. But anyway, oh, and the one that they just put out a bit ago with like Lux Eterna and If Darkness Had a Sun on it. Dude, If Darkness Had a Sun, that is just one of my favorite openings to a song ever. The way it just like builds up with the drums, the and then the guitars get going, the and then it like builds up to that hard rockin' riff, and then you know where it comes, where it's like temptation, and it just, oh, it's so good, man. I can imagine seeing that one live. That would be like a whatever. Anyway, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which was their last album before this most recent one, and yeah, I wish I had the other ones, like, obviously, And Justice for All, or, you know, going as far back as, like, their first album, which, man, going back, I don't know how many people still listen to that first Metallica record, but I love it so much. Like, Whiplash, for example, just, oh my gosh, hearing James scream, Whiplash, like, it's so good. But, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, there's so many great songs in this one as well, but I will say, if I had to choose, like, my most listened to song on this one, it would definitely be that first song, where it's literally, you know, it's the same name as the album Hardwired to Self-Destruct, but it's, we're so out of luck, hardwired to self-destruct. It's so good, man. Another one I'd love to see live. And the way that it starts out with the drums, oh man, it's just, it always reminded me of like a horse race with the way that it starts, like, just going, it's just so good. And then you got the inside there, this is one where it's not necessarily the deluxe, this isn't like a deluxe version of the album, it's just an album that came with like 2 discs, so it's one of those things where I was, you know, just fine buying this version. Sure, I would have preferred if it came in like a normal CD, but hey, it's fine. It looks super rad, you get the cool images on the inside, so that's that. Anyway, oh, another thing I forgot to mention, not only is that Brian Head Welsh CD signed, but I also have this single signed. It is Flush, which is one of the songs that I talked about from his first album there, so yeah, this is pretty cool to have. It has the Flush radio edit and then the Flush Puke version on the back. So yeah, there's 2 versions of the song, one where it's, you know, just him singing the song normally and there isn't any of that stuff, but then there's the other version that you would also hear on the album where at the end you can, you know, hear him doing what the name suggests, because it is a song about like addiction and alcohol and drugs and all that fun stuff. Every time I see cases like this, I always think about the like the cardboard sleeves that came with like the Wii, for example, for like Wii Sports. If you know, you know. Or also New Super Mario Bros. Wii. That game also had 2 versions where it could come in a case or it came in that red sleeve if you got it with your Wii. But anyway, on to the final stack of CDs here. Oh man, there's a thick layer of dust on this one, and it is actually like I don't know if the camera can pick. Oh, my eyes are burning just from holding it. Anyway, this is Mudvayne LD50, and one thing to know about me is that I love Mudvayne. So unfortunately, I only have 3 of their CDs, even though they have 5 out. But I do think that they're planning to make new music because they recently they did a thing where they got back together and are going on tour and stuff like that, which I would love to see them live because Mudvayne's always been one of my favorite bands. But we got LD50 here, and then their second album, The End of All Things to Come, and then their third one, Lost and Found, the dust. I know I keep saying it, but it keeps getting worse and worse. I can literally see it floating. Now, for those that don't know, I can actually do metal vocals. I'm not gonna do them right here, or, you know, at all, but Mudvayne has always been one of my favorite bands to do them to, just kind of like gauge where my vocals are at for the day. Now, I haven't done metal vocals actually in like probably 2 years, I want to say. It's just been a while since I've really had the, I guess, the willpower to do it, or really just time to do it. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, it was fun to do for a bit, but nowadays, you know, I'm more chill, man. I just want to make my videos, play video games, go to bed, sleep, repeat. But, you know, if I ever get back into it, who knows, might upload, like, some random metal vocal cover, or just, like, a video of me messing around doing it, because I can still do them. Like, I can feel it. It's not that hard to do it, even if you haven't done it in a while. But, yeah, Mudvayne was always a great way to kind of test my lows and my highs all at once. I mean, because it's one of those bands where, like, they have some lower ones. Like, you listen to, like, Dig, and he has the main part where it's like, Dig! Bury me, and it's like much lower, but then like towards the end of that he goes like everything that I am, and he goes like real high doing the fry screams and stuff. So yeah, that was always one of my favorite songs to gauge where my vocals were at in terms of range for the day, but also just like my pure speed, because Dig, you know, is like, you know, kind of like rap screaming. But anyway, yeah, LD50, classic record right there. So many great songs. Death Blooms, -1, Dig, list goes on and on. Great. And then The End of All Things to Come, their second record. If I could point out some favorites here, Not Falling, World So Cold, and the first one, Silenced, on the album. That was another one that I listened to a lot back in the day. And arguably my favorite Mudvayne album, if I had to choose, gun to my head, whole shebang, Lost and Found. This CD is a little interesting. It has like a button here that like opens up, but this one's cool because it also comes with like a DVD, which kind of shows like behind the scenes and stuff like that. So yeah, I always thought that was really cool. Oh, I had so much stuff in there, but I like to taste it. Anyway, it's like a double-sided CD where like one side you put it in, it's a CD. If you flip it, it's DVD. But anyways, yeah, this is one of those albums where, sorry, I'm just brushing the dust off. It's one of those albums where I could just listen to it front to back, and there's just, you know, every song is amazing on here. The opening song, Determined, just hits like a truck as soon as it starts. Pushing Through is a great follow-up to that. Happy, Falling Asleep, Forget to Remember. So many great songs on here. All That You Are, I've always felt like is a really underrated Mudvayne album. That song is just, you know, it's real deep on the emotional side of things, but it's also just it's so good. It gets so heavy towards the end, but you can just still feel the emotion the whole way through. It's so good. Next up, we got Rob Zombie, Hellbilly Deluxe. If I had to choose my 2 favorite songs off of this one, I'd probably say Dragula, Living Dead Girl. I know those are like 2 very basic picks, but I'm sorry, those songs are just so good. Dig through the ditches and burn through the witches and slam in the back of my Dragula. Yeah, you know, they actually just used that song for the Black Ops 6 Zombies trailer, which was really cool. I remember my reaction video, I heard it, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, they did it. But then also Living Dead Girl, you know, obviously that song is just super catchy as well. Next up, we got Seether, Disclaimer, which... hard for me to pick my favorite Seether album, but if I had to pick, this is probably the one right here. Again, just another album where it's gotten me through so many hard times in my life. Not just breakups, but also just, you know, when I was going through my bouts with addiction and stuff. We'll keep that short and keep it brief. I don't want to get too deep into it, but yeah, I've struggled with a lot of addictions in my day. And yeah, that record was always a great one for me to kind of just... I don't know, kind of, I guess, keep a handle on myself. Again, I don't want to go too deep into it, but there was a lot of various substances I was addicted to for a while. Thankfully, I've been clean for a couple of years now, and I knocked out the final addiction about 6 months ago, that being cigarettes and nicotine and stuff, so I'm officially 100% sober. I've been 100% sober since February of 2026. However, that was just off of nicotine. If we're talking about harder substances like drinks and other things, you know, I got clean back in 2020, so, but now that I dropped the nicotine, now I'm all good, all healthy, and the only thing that goes in this body is food, water, and the most extreme thing that goes in is like Coke or Dr. Pepper. Next up, just, well, we're actually basically at the end of this thing now, but I talked about it before, and I've talked about it many times before. Slipknot. It's one of those bands where I would need to take an entire... I'm just going to go ahead and flash up all those CDs. We got the first one there, and then we got Iowa, and then we got Volume 3, and then we got All Hope Is Gone, and then we got The Gray Chapter, and then we got We Are Not Your Kind, and then we got the album that I bought most recently. This is actually... Yeah, I think this might be my most recent purchase. I forget. Maybe Avril Lavigne Let Go might have been my most recent CD purchase, but the end so far, the most recent album. Yeah, man, it's just one of those things where... I would love to get more in depth with it, but all I will say, just kind of keep it basic, kind of keep it brief, is Slipknot is my favorite band of all time. I love all of their songs, all of their albums. I've listened to not only all of their officially released songs, I've seen them live. I've also went back and listened to their songs before, you know, they got Corey Taylor in the band before their first official record, you know, with MFKR. And the amount of things that band has helped get me through just with their music, and just being there as a relatable source to get emotional to get mad to be happy and vibe to, or to just listen to. Like, you know, it's just one of those things where it's been such an influential band for me for just my life in general, and I'm a maggot for life. That's all I gotta say. I love Slipknot so much. In fact, when I first got a guitar, you know, getting into playing guitar, Jim Root and Mick Thompson were like my two biggest inspirations at the time for wanting to get into playing guitar and playing electric guitar. And I remember The Devil and I was like one of the first songs that I actually learned on guitar, which props to me. I'm not saying it's like the hardest song in the world, but it's definitely, for a beginner, you know, it takes some time to get down. So yeah, I love Slipknot so much, but again, that could be an entire video in itself. I love that band so much. I mean, again, I literally have a flag of them in the room. So, yeah, love Slipknot. But anyway, then we got Corey Taylor's other band, which again, Corey Taylor's the lead singer of Slipknot, but he also had another band before Slipknot. But it's funny, even though he was with this band first, they didn't end up putting out their first official album until after Slipknot's second album had been out in 2002. So their first album being their self-titled one, that being just straight up Stone Sour, because that's the name of the band, and again, self-titled record. And then I have their second album here, Come Whenever May. I do want to get their albums, the rest of their albums, because I do love all of their albums. I've listened to all of them, I just don't have them physically yet. And it's sad, because they haven't released an album since 2017, I want to say, is when Hydrograd came out. And yeah, it's been 7 years since then. They've done, you know, tours and shows since then, but we haven't heard any new music from them. I love all of Stone Sour's songs and all of their albums as well. Definitely a bit of a different feel from Slipknot. Like, at first, with this first album, it kind of felt like, I don't want to say Slipknot light, but in a way it kind of did, because it was kind of going for like similar vibes. It felt like, you know, just between how heavy it was and even some of the melodical tones and such, but it was still different enough to where it didn't feel like Slipknot. It just felt like maybe a lighter version of it, where Corey Taylor was still kind of transferring over what he'd learned and knew from Slipknot into this, which, I mean, you can only expect, right? Like, if you're in a band, or if it's just, when it comes to making art, you know, when it's your unique take on art, obviously there's gonna be a lot of similarities if we go to create something else, but you know, by the time that the second album came out, and then just going on, they definitely started to get their own sound or identity, I guess, down, and just kind of really solidifying what Stone Sour is. Even then, though, they've dabbled with a lot of different genres and kinds of music that you can't just box them into one genre, nor do I believe you should ever box anyone or anything into one genre or one type of thing. But at the same time, they definitely started to, sorry, I was just adjusting the camera because I noticed it got knocked out of place. But, you know, they started to definitely find a sound where you hear them and you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's Stone Sour, if that makes any sense. But anyway, that is all the CDs that I have. Unfortunately, yeah, you know, again, I wish I had more, but that's just kind of where I'm at the moment. But I do plan to keep collecting and, well, at the very least, get back into collecting, since, again, it's been so long since I actually got the chance to do so. But, yeah, as soon as I collect some more, I want to say is, you know, once I get, like, enough to fill up, like, I don't know, like another video's worth, maybe I could just briefly go over the CDs that I already covered up to that point, and then go from there and just kind of cover the other ones that I had gotten by then. So I'll wait until I buy like another 40-50 CDs and we'll run through it. But yeah, another collection video down, and if there's any other collections of mine that you guys will want to see, just let me know. I know there's been some requests for a full video game collection, but I don't know how to do that. It's one of those things where I might just have to cover each video game collection individually, like do one video on the Xbox 360, one on the PS3, one on the PS4, and then at the end do a big compilation. Because I'm telling you, if I would try to sit down and do a video like this for my entire for my video game collection, we'd be here for at least 10, 12, maybe more hours. I have a lot of video games, but if that's what you guys want, so be it. But anyway, as always, massive shout out to all the Patreons and channel members seeing it on low ball tier, and a shout out to all the big ball tier, my last comment, dad, man, and this shout out to the DC run events, and let's just go. Thank you guys so much, guys are literal legends. I love you. Thank you guys for watching. Amazing day, stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.